This tutorial is about building voicings from guide tones. In previous tutorials I've been talking about the guide tones, which are the thirds and sevenths. And in this tutorial I'm going to explore how most more complex chords are built up from these building blocks. Here's a 2-5-1 into C major with guide tones, the third and the seventh of D minor, the seventh and the third of G7, and the third and seventh, major seventh of C major. Sounds like this. If I add an extra note, that could be the ninth at the top. Keep it there, it's the 13th, or you can end up on this chord 1. 4-note chord, so now I'm going to add the 5th, which is an A. So you've got the 3rd, the 5th, the 7th, the 9th. And I just move the C to the B, which is the guide tone movement. And then move down to C major 7. It's really worth noting that the movement is the same as the guide tones. And here we have 4 notes. You still have the same thing, we're just keeping the other notes there. It's a bit like cooking and adding a bit of flavouring to the recipe. Exercise 2 is exactly the same but with an inversion. So instead of the 3rd and the 7th, we now have the 7th underneath the 3rd. So this is the guide tone for D minor 7. And for G7, we've got the 3rd and the 7th above. And for C major 7, we have the 7th and the 3rd above. So I'm going to add the 5th to this chord with the same movement, but keep the 5th at the top, and that now becomes G9. So we have the same movement that we had in the guide tones. I add another note, I'm going to add the 9th, which is an E. If I keep it going in the next chord, just move my thumb, you now have G13 and C major 9. I'm going to go back to my voicing that I did a few moments ago, and this is now the one that goes 3, 5, 7, 9, based on these guide tones. And when I had 4 notes before I was doing this, now I'm going to flatten the 9th, so you get this sound. I'm not going to bother to resolve to chord 1 because the chord 1 doesn't really change in this exercise. Do that again. This time I'm going to keep the top note here, which is the 13th, and just move that to the flat 9, and then move the C to the B, which is the movement of the guide tone. So a little subtle movement. And that's a G13 with a flat 9. There's the 13th, there's the flat 9, there's the 7th, and there's the 3rd. Going to do another one. D minor 9. I'm going to flatten the 9th, but I'm also going to flatten the 13, and I'm going to do the guide tone movement, which is the C to the B. So it sounds like this. That's a G7, flat 13, flat 9. Next one, I'm going to do same D minor chord, an altered chord. So it's going to have this movement, but it's also going to have flat 13, sharp 9. So you get this movement. So we still have this, but you wouldn't probably hear it so much because it seems to be hidden with all those dissonant extensions. Then I'm going to do exactly the same thing, but this time I'm going to change the shape. So the guide tone shape this is based on is this one, with the 7th at the bottom and the 3rd at the top. So we add the 5th. This time, when we drop our thumb down to the B, we also flatten the 9th, so we get this shape and this sound. Add an extra note, the 9th, like we did before. Keep the 9th there, just do the guide tone movement and have the flat 9. Get a G13 with the flat 9, there's the 13. D minor 9, this time we're going to flatten the 13 and we're going to flatten the 9. So there's the flat 13 and there's the flat 9. Next one we're going to do, same minor chord there. Gone to 3 notes just for a change, and the outside notes are going to move. So they still got this movement, but the top note, which is the 9th, is going to be sharpened. doing that with 4 notes. We've got the 9th of D minor there, and that's going to go to the flat 13, sharp 9, and we've got our guide tones under there. In the next exercise, I'm going to suspend chord 2. So here's chord 2, D minor 9. I'm going to suspend it. That means hold it, but I'm going to move the left hand as though it was going to go to the dominant, to chord 5, to a G chord, so there it's suspended. So that's actually, when you see G sus, that's a really good voicing for it, okay? And then I'm going to resolve it. Let's do that again. And if I was going to resolve it to C, it sounded like that. Doing the same thing. This time, I'm going to put in a flat 9 to give it a little bit more dissonance. I could also hold the outside notes and just move the ones that move. And that's quite a subtle sound. That would sound like this. Taking the other shape with the 7th at the bottom and the 3rd at the top. It's a 3-note voicing. Suspend it, hold it over the left hand, which goes to the G, which is the dominant, then resolve it. And then you can go to C. Do the same thing again, but introduce some dissonance on chord 5. Suspend it. And then we've got the altered chord. Final exercise. This is really interesting. And instead of doing a 2, 5, 1, we're going to replace chord 5 with its tritone substitution, which is D flat. And that's because it's 3 tones. So 1, 2, 3. That's why it's called tritone. Sounds very musical. And I am going to do a voicing that we have previously used in another exercise. So here was a 2, 5, 1. That was to G13. Now I'm going to take the left hand down a semitone, and that 13th chord now is D flat 7 altered. There's a lot more dissonance there. We've got the 3rd, we've got the sharp 5, we've got the 7th, we've got the flat 9. We're going to move now to chord 1. So you can hear how that sounds. Take this shape, that's the one with the 7th at the bottom and the 3rd at the top. Disguise it with all these 9ths. So before it was like this, to G9. Now we're going to go down a semitone the left hand and you get D7 altered. So this chord that was G13 is now working with this in the bass. Why is that? Because the guide tones, which is a B and an F, are also the guide tones for D flat, but whereas in G, B was the 3rd and F was the 7th, in D flat, B is the 7th and F is the 3rd. And the other notes that were quite consonant for G713 have now changed. So the other notes that are in there, the E, which was the 13th, when you put a D flat in the bass note, that's now a sharp 9. The 9th of D of G is an A, but when you put a D flat, it's a sharp 5 or a flat 13. So that sounds like this. Likewise, when you have a dissonant chord 5, so remember that was G7 altered. If you go down chromatically in the left hand, it's suddenly much more consonant. That's now a D flat 13 with the same principles as in the other chords. And this shape, before when we were doing G altered, if you go down to D flat in the left hand, you get a nice consonant 13th sound. So the whole point of this really is once you've got those guide tones nailed, everything else is just icing on the cake after that. So here's making the cake, my favourite analogy. Here's adding a cherry on top. Here's adding a filling. Here's adding a different filling. And so on. And all of this can be examined in great detail from my worksheet that goes with this accompanying tutorial.